So today I'm going to be reviewing the third installment of the Hobbit franchise, The Hobbit: The Battle of Five Armies. There will be spoiler alerts, so keep that in mind as you proceed to watch this video. So I don't believe this film was the best of the three, but definitely not the worst either. So the Battle of Five Armies pretty much deals with all this sort of action. It continues right after the second Hobbit film, The Desolation of Smaug, with Smaug destroying the lake town, then Bard the Bowman defeating the dragon, and all these armies fighting over the treasure and the rise of the orcs and Sauron and all these different things. But the pacing feels a little bit off because it's just action continuously, and I'm not one to complain about action. But to be fair, there's nothing memorable about the action scene. It was just fighting, 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 but no like real epic scenes. Nothing that really stood out. Even the main fight scenes, between Thorin and Azog the Destroyer, or like Legolas and like that other orc who's like the right hand man, like nothing really stood out in my opinion, and it was entertaining and it was exciting, but there wasn't all this depth to the film. I thoroughly enjoyed the Lord of the Rings trilogy far more than the Hobbit trilogy, and what I think they should have done is made two films, because the first Hobbit film, which I consider the worst of the three, was very slow, very boring. The second Hobbit film pacing was perfect. I enjoyed the second Hobbit film immensely. The Desolation of Smaug was quite easily the best of the three. Pacing was good amount of action, good amount of depth, good amount of writing and development of the characters and all of this, but that sort of just goes away in the third and first films. They could have easily cut down the first film and added a lot of Desolation of Smaug, and then did the same thing, took the rest of Desolation of Smaug, the ending, added it to the Battle of Five Armies, create two solid Hobbit films. You could theoretically even create one Hobbit film that goes by really quickly, and I think it would have been better, but of course, studios want to make money, so might as well have three movies, which is three times the money as opposed to having one or two movies. So with that being said, I think the acting was decent, but it felt very exaggerated at times. It was definitely forced, didn't feel genuine. The fight scene between Thor and Azog the Destroyer, like the eyes closing underwater, and then they appear, and then he grabs them, like that felt a little bit cheesy. I did like the sort of love story between Tariel and that one dwarf, and I don't mean to be offensive with my lack of Tolkien knowledge, but literally it was hard to distinguish the dwarves in this film, reading the book or otherwise, because it's just, there's nothing that memorable about a lot of them, and it just sort of all gets clustered in your mind. They don't do a good amount of development, and that's not to say like just because you have a large cast, you can't develop all the characters. I think actually that's what the Lord of the Rings did so good, is that I remember everyone in that film. I remember, Frodo, Sam, you know, uh, uh, Golem, Smeagol, the same character, Aragorn, like all the different characters, Legolas, like Gimli, like they all stood out in my opinion. They all had their moments, but in this film, it just sort of fell flat. Now that being said, I think Martin Freeman, did an amazing job in this movie, like he does in everything. Amazing actor. I would have liked to see more of Smaug the Dragon because I like Benedict Cumberbatch. And I also enjoyed the dragon. That was pretty good acting, and that was a pretty exciting scene when he's destroying the town. That was actually probably one of the more memorable scenes, as opposed to the 3 hours of fighting. It wasn't actually that long, but it felt like that, where nothing really happened. Um, so I just felt like the pacing was very off in this movie, and I have to say I'd probably give this rating for this movie overall C minus. Not really exciting at all. Um, the action wasn't worthwhile, the pacing was off, a lot of it was over exaggerated, and then they had that nice tie-in to the end connecting to Lord of the Rings to tell the Legolas's father, telling him to look for Aragorn, but they never say that name, alludes to this man in the north. And of course, Bilbo eventually is going to give the ring to Frodo, and he goes on the quest, etc. It was also nice to see the Eagles coming in to save the day again in the battle. Like it seems like the Eagles has been the Deus Machina of this entire franchise, and at least it felt a little less cheesy in the Lord of the Rings. But in this case, it just felt like the same thing over and over. The one fight scene I did really like, besides the destruction of Smaug, was actually the one where you had Saruman, and I forget their names, and I apologize for that. Again, Sauron. It was Saruman, um, one of the elves, and then like the elf enchantress. I'm really bad with names, so I apologize again. But them fighting sort of this necromancer, which is quite easily Sauron, that was pretty entertaining. And then you know, sort of alluded to the fall and betrayal of Saruman when he's like, "No, I'm going to be the one to go after that." That was pretty interesting. And I enjoyed that immensely. That scene was pretty cool, and Gandalf always doing a good job. Ian McKellen, great actor. But overall, while the acting was decent, most of it was overforced. Everything kind of fell flat. Again, I give this film probably a C minus. That being said, it's still a good film. I would recommend, you know, going to the theater if you just want to kill some time, but no need to. Watch it on DVD. It's worth watching at least. But it's definitely not the best film of 2014. It's not even the best Hobbit film. So with that being said, you know, felt a little bit flat, not completely bad. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you want me to review anything in the future, music, movies, TV, just let me know below. I always look forward to your feedback. If you agree, disagree, comment below. Please be cordial, of course, though there's no way for me to control that. And just look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Thanks very much for watching the review.